The Los Alamos Historical Museum sits in the heart of old downtown Los Alamos, an hour and a half north of Albuquerque off New Mexico State Road 502. The museum is housed in an old log and stone cabin, originally built as an infirmary in 1918, but ultimately serving as the guest cottage for the Los Alamos Ranch School and guest quarters for officials visiting during the Manhattan Project. While the museum outlines the long span of history in this area, from ancestral pueblos to early homesteaders, I'm here today to get a more personal account of the lives of the people I see depicted in the photos and exhibits of the museum, the people who lived on the plateau during the Manhattan Project. I'm meeting with the museum curator, Amy Slaughter, who, as it turns out, has plenty of stories to share. So Amy, you always hear the story about, what happened here in terms of the science, but I want to know about the people. What were the people like in starting right where we are right now? So where are we?
So we're in the Hans Bethe House, is what we call it, because there were a lot of scientists that lived here. Hans Bethe was one of them, Nobel Prize winning scientist. And the people that lived here in Los Alamos during the Manhattan Project were very young. The median age was in the mid-20s. Wow. So very young, they worked really hard. They worked 6-day weeks, and so Saturday nights, everybody just let loose. There were all sorts of wild parties. There were all sorts of clubs that they made. There were dance groups and music groups and all sorts of things that they did. And it was really a work hard, play hard kind of a place.
I imagine.
And they were all really aware that they were working on the war effort. And it wasn't just the scientists that were contributing to the war effort. A lot of them brought their families, so there were wives working in town, there were soldiers here. There were people from local communities that were working here. There were local Hispanics and people from local pueblos, all sort of working together to help the United States win the war.
Is there like a tenseness about the people that are working and can't tell their wives? How does that interaction happen?
Yeah, there's a lot of stress because you can't tell your family what's going on. You can't necessarily even tell everybody that you're working with. It's on a need-to-know basis what you can work about. And you're working, like I said, 6-day weeks, really long hours. So it's really stressful. And there's a lot of stories about, especially wives moving here with their scientists saying that they felt like pioneer women, that they left their homes behind and they're living in a city that was built kind of overnight. All the roads are dirt, there are no street signs, the houses are super temporary. My mail all gets addressed to Post Office Box 1663 in Santa Fe. If there are any babies that are born here, that's what it says on their birth certificate. Yeah. They were born in a post office box. Oh. Everybody's driver's licenses said that they live in a post office box. It's crazy.
What was in Los Alamos before? There's, you hear about the ranch school. So
right.
Can you talk about that?
Right, so there was a boys' school here called the Ranch School, and it was like a high school age kids that were here. A lot of them were coming from the East Coast or from the Midwest. Some of them had health problems, come out in the clean desert air and sort of turn into men, and so they were all also Boy Scouts. And they wanted them to not just sort of get their schooling, but also get, learn how to camp and hike and take care of horses. They were all assigned a horse as soon as they came here, so they would learn responsibility. So this was one of the houses that one of the masters of the ranch school lived in. There was some infrastructure here because the ranch school was here. So there were over 30 buildings that were here. They had water and electricity. So buildings like this that are, proper houses that people could live in, and that was kind of where they started from. And they thought initially it was going to be kind of a small project, but it grew very quickly and very large. And so these houses, like the ones that we're in right now, there's original ones from the ranch school where the masters lived, was called Bathtub Row because they were the only houses that had bathtubs. Because of war rationing, all of the other houses had showers, except for one of the barracks for the WACs. They had some bathtubs there. Right. So this is where sort of the big names lived, was on Bathtub Row, because they had sort of the social standing to have a proper house with a bathtub. And there's stories about people saying like, oh yeah, I'll come and I'll babysit your kids and you don't have to worry about paying me, I'll just take a bath while I'm there.
That was like the luxury.
Yes, totally.
Now that I know the backstory behind the street name Bathtub Row, Amy takes me for a tour of this historic district, which I feel I am seeing with a new set of eyes. While we focus on the Manhattan Project during our visit to the museum, there is a lot more to it. Check out their exhibits on the geology and anthropology of the area. Right on site and just a few steps away from the museum is even an ancestral pueblo. And I'm not the only one able to get a guided tour of Bathtub Row. 3 days a week, the museum offers docent-led tours of the historic district of Los Alamos. Once you've swallowed such a big dose of history, chase it down with the beer from the Bathtub Row Brewing Co-op. The cleverly named Hoppenheimer IPA seems a fitting choice if I do say so myself.